Before, he was born on that day. And you know what? Not only was he born on the 9th of Kislev on the Hebrew calendar, he also passed away on the 9th of Kislev on the Hebrew calendar. So something very ironic happened. So here you have a rabbi in Russia, 300 years ago, less, 260 years ago, approximately. A brilliant thinker. If you read his philosophy on Hasidus, it's mind-boggling. It's really, intelligence-wise, philosophically speaking, there were very big professors, actually. There was a Professor Green who became religious, and he started to understand the text. It speaks about the philosophy of godliness, of infinity. He was fascinated once he figured out the Hebrew. But all his discourses, his essays, the essays of the Mittel Rebbe, his philosophies were brilliant. He was such a big thinker that it was a very common scene to see the way he's sitting in a cold synagogue in Russia. They didn't have proper steams. And he wore a fur hat. You know the way they wear it in Russia? Still do. A spudik, it's called. He wore a fur hat. And he would sit in one place with closed eyes, meditating on all those concepts, some of which he shared with the Hasidim, the followers, and his spudik on his head would become drenched from sweat. Drenched. Now, he's sitting in one place. He wasn't hot. He definitely wasn't hot enough. He definitely wasn't hot enough that it should drench his. It used to drip. Hasidim, there was a common scene. Hundreds of people saw this. He used to drip big. He used to make a puddle. The whole time it was dripping from sweat. And what's the logic? Why was his body exerting so much sweat? And it says the reason was because he was thinking with so much brain power. There was such a high capacity of thinking that he worked hard sitting in one place. It was sort of like he was causing his body to work. Just his brain, the brain cells, and the whole system of the brain was so active that his body was overworking. That's how powerful he was. Story that the next Lubavitcher Rebbe, not the middle one, the third one, Tzemach Tzedek, he was once sitting at one of the happiest days of the year, like B'Omer. And that was one of the few times of the year he used to say a little l'chaim on some vodka. They didn't have such fancy stuff then in Russia. They didn't have this 12-year age stuff that we get. They had simple vodka made out of potatoes or grain. If you were rich, a clergy, a real Rebbe who's really holy and deep and profound and really means other people. These people were so holy that they closed in. People always said about the Rebbe, that's on the pictures of the wall, the Rebbe of every Jew, people always said that the Rebbe was a hidden tzaddik. Because nobody knew who the Rebbe is. The Rebbe did what he can, and he was caught sometimes to hide himself. To hide himself, his greatness. All the greatness we hear about the Rebbe, it's a fraction of what he tried his best to conceal. He didn't want other people to know. The Tzemach Tzedek was just like that. And when he said l'chaim, his heart opened up and he started to talk. They saw that the Rebbe is tipsy, so to say. He's a little bit, under the influence. Under the influence. And when you're under the influence, your secrets come out. And his secrets were more Hasidic teachings and more deeper thoughts and dimensions of the Torah. And he was a little bit tipsy, but then it was time for him to say a Hasidic discourse. And over here he was like shaky, and then suddenly after a few hours of saying l'chaim and shakiness, he went like